Hello, and welcome back to Tartan Touchdown Episodes, your weekly deep dive into all the biggest stories from another dramatic weekend of NFL action. Week 16 felt like a real turning point across the league. This was the weekend where things stopped being theoretical and started becoming very real, with divisions beginning to get clinched, playoff hopes officially dying for some teams, and for others, those Super Bowl dreams suddenly felt a lot more fragile. So we're now at the stage of the season where every result has consequences. One loss doesn't just hurt, it ends seasons. And one win doesn't just help, it reshapes the playoff picture. And you could feel that tension right across the league this weekend. Joining me today is Dan. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm one of those people where one loss has shaped the rest of your season. So, yeah, unfortunately, Cowboys are officially eliminated. So, not a great week to be a Cowboys fan, but what's a promise to come?
To come in the future, hopefully. So, yes, we'll continue on that. So this week, we will take a look at how the division races have been shaping up now that the first titles have been clinched, where the remaining battles will be decided, and why this final stretch of the season might be the most unforgiving part of the NFL calendar. With divisions won and playoffs clinched, another big question is already creeping into conversations, which is, do teams start thinking about resting their starters already? So before we jump in, make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube and that your notifications are switched on for Spotify and all podcast platforms so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for all the latest Tartan Touchdown content. And we've got a lot to get through today, so
Yeah.
we should probably start and get into it.
Sarah, I'm going to jump in. Before you get into your rhythm, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here.
Okay.
You're very modest when it comes to talking about your Jags, and you always downplay their chances. But I'm going to ask you right off the bat, after the win last night against the Broncos, are the Jaguars legit? And don't be modest. You can go all fangirl like you do with Taylor Swift about your Jag. Are the Jags legit? Let's start there.
Yes, I think they are legit. For a couple of reasons. I guess the biggest one to me is this whole entire week, everyone was like, yep, it'll be the Broncos, the Broncos will win, the Broncos will win. You just have to look at the fact they were on such a winning streak, they were on such a winning streak at home, and it was obvious in that stadium that those fans turned up. Like every time, I was watching the game live. I came off of Red Zone watching to just watch the Jags play, and I could barely hear. The camera was shaking, the entire stadium was shaking. And to come in to a situation like that and do what they did is very, very impressive.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And for those that haven't seen the score, the Jags went to Mile High, or whatever they call it now, and won 34-20. It wasn't even close to
No.
being there. In the fourth quarter, he's traded field goals in the fourth quarter, but you were up 34-17, and
Yeah.
the Broncos managed a field goal, and that was it in the fourth quarter. When they've got to come back and try and win the game, your defense was excellent. Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence had a great game, throwing for the 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't just necessarily the touchdown passes. He just seemed so assured. He went on the ground quite a bit, and we ran for 20 yards, 6 carries, or 20 yards, but there were times where there was a very obvious third or fourth down, and he just went off the corner and got a first down.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is starting to, I think, look like the Trevor Lawrence, all the hype he had coming out of college. What do you think the change is? If the obvious answer is the new head coach, then fine, but what do you think the change is in the team from previous couple of years until this year?
So I think the obvious one is Liam Cohen, and I think he is the change that they needed. They needed somebody to come in who had his kind of mentality. Obviously, again, we saw what he did with Baker, and we've now seen what's happened to Baker maybe since he's left. So that's maybe an obvious answer. And you just sometimes need the right click for the right coach to allow that to happen. And I think that's really done well for Trevor in particular. Like you can see him, he's much better at decision making. His turnovers are now limited because he was always a bit of a flight case in the sense of you always maybe thought he was going to do at least one interception a game. It was going to be dreadful. And it was how the defense then can come back on it, right? And we've not had that for the past couple of games, really since we lost to the Texans, the way we lost to the Texans.
Yeah.
I think the obvious answer is for Trevor, it's been Liam Cohen.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the start of this season, I was hoping you were going to get things from Brian Thomas Jr. He's not had a great season, but yet he's still with this record. How big is signing Jacoby Myers on that new contract, do you think, for you?
Wild. And we, obviously, if people don't know and don't follow the Jags news, we've signed Jacoby for the next year. So he's already been extended and we've not even finished the season yet. So we don't know. We obviously, we're 99% likely to be in the playoff. So that's pretty much almost secured. So we don't even know how far we're going to go into the playoffs to look at a Super Bowl run. And we've already signed him because we know it's what we've been missing him from the offense. And he's been also really good for Brian Thomas Jr. because you can see the two of them working together in practice because he's got somebody to learn from who is a vet who knows what he's doing. And even in the first week when Jacoby came in, him and Trevor were connecting really, really quickly. So it's just that assurance that somebody is out there who's going to make these catches.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, I think you can see it with Parker Washington as well as also
I was going to
learning
just
from
about to
Jacoby.
ask you about Parker Washington. He's been a revelation.
What an absolute superstar. I mean, I thought he was special when he did a couple of his returns early on in the season because he's quite short, but he's fast. He is speedy and he can get open and he's really, really good. Liam likes to do a lot of trick, kind of like sort of like trick plays, but a lot of like movement and resetting plays. And that seems to really confuse the defense we go up against, which is basically what happened all of last night was the Broncos defense didn't really know what we were doing half the time.
No, Parker Washington, he's now your receiving leader for the season, 645 yards. And he had, I don't, his longest is 63 yards. I don't know how long that one was. There was one he went fairly deep on the Broncos last night. I don't know if that was that one, but he has a proper, real deep ball threat for you. But even that, he's taking the ball short and his speed is getting them those extra yards after the catch as well. On the flip side of it, talk is your defense. Your defense has been pretty decent this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like Anthony Capinelli is our defensive coordinator, and he came in, and he came in at first, and I was like, oh, you're like quite gritty, like because we don't really tend to have defensive coordinators that are like gritty. And I remember watching. There's a really, really cool. If people have time to go and sit and watch it, I really recommend going on the Jaguars YouTube channel and watching the Sounds of the Game series that we post because they're absolutely incredible. Like our social media team and our editing team are doing some really, really cool stuff. And the first couple of games, he is screaming at them, being like, you get in there and you punch that ball out. You do whatever it is you got to do. You got to rip it out. You got to throw them down, whatever it is. And you can see them going to do it. They're proper getting tackled, like they're getting players down and they're trying to force a fumble, which is why we've gotten so many. But they're reading plays really well. They're going through it and they're getting into spots. And we didn't even sack Bo Nix that many times last night, but the pressure from that defensive line was really coming at him, and you could see him really panic when he was getting Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen were coming at him, and he was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now because this doesn't happen to him normally. So
no, I've been massively impressed by the Jaguars, and like I just thought they're kind of going along, going to have an average season, but they just seem to have taken that step forward in recent weeks. And last night is a massive win for them. Obviously, we've been high on the Broncos this year in terms of the AFC. We'll come to what we think is going to happen with the divisions, but there's a realm out there currently where the Jags could take the number one seed, which we'll maybe go into a bit further. But at the start of the season, could you ever imagine that the Jags were, after week 16, that the Jags are in the shout for number one seed?
No, I remember if anybody listens back to our like opening, like before the season had started, I had said if we can survive the first 6 weeks with 2 wins, I would be very happy, right? And I never ever would have put us to be in the spot that we are. And to kind of go back to where I think this is kind of really stemmed from in the past couple of weeks is no one talks about us. We don't have, obviously, as people keep mentioning, we're a small market, right? And I think what Liam Cohen has been able to do is take that and really, really put that on the players to be like, no one cares about us. Nobody thinks we're going to do anything. We're just a small market team. And instead of like telling them to brush it off, he's like, use that for fuel. Let them doubt you.
Yeah. It's something you see in football and in soccer a lot, is that whole siege mentality. It's like, nobody likes us, nobody thinks we're going to win. Let's go out and prove them wrong. And that's what you're saying. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's like, nobody's talking about us, so let's just go and win these games and let them forget about us and think. And I don't know, maybe the Broncos didn't underestimate us last night, but maybe they did. But at this point in the season, you should be underestimating anybody with what would have been a 10-4 record at the time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to say, like I said, with the Cowboys out of the playoffs, I'm jumping on the Jaguars bandwagon. I'm going to pick the Jags for my team for the playoffs.
Well, in saying jumping on the bandwagon, Trayvon Walker had some excellent points last night. He was on doing the Jaguars radio after the game, and he dropped a couple of F-bombs and basically saying that if anybody that comes on our bandwagon, because we don't want them, but I was like,
Not a
and then he
cheap one, but
apologized.
hey, I want
Yeah,
you to do well.
I know. And then he apologized to his gran afterwards. He said he was really sorry for swearing on radio. And I was like, oh, bless him. It's like,
So I
bless him.
don't care what you say. I'm jumping on the Jags bandwagon for the remainder of the season. So there we
Yeah.
go. Right. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you in your flow. Let's move on to the division and what we think is going to happen. You take the control back.
Okay. All right. I will take the control back. So with Jacksonville pushing hard in the AFC after their stand-up win yesterday and pressure building across both conferences, it feels like the perfect moment to really zoom out and ask the big questions of who we think is winning these divisions and maybe who's about to let it slip away. So if we start with the NFC, right, because they have the most playoff spot teams that have already clinched, right? And with the Eagles being locked in the East, and that's not changing. No, that's how it's going to be, and how we maybe thought that was going to happen.
They're the only team that have secured the division out of all the divisions in the NFL this season. They're the only team. We're getting to week 17 with one division locked in this. And also, as a start for anybody that maybe doesn't know this, it's the first time the NFC East has had back-to-back winners in something like 20 years.
Yeah.
Something crazy. Like there's not been a back-to-back winner for that long. It's always changed. Yeah. So Eagles, they're in. They've won the division.
Yeah.
That's the only team of all the 8 divisions that have won their division.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not shocked. I did pick them to go back to the Super Bowl, so this doesn't surprise me. But they've been doing that thing again of just turning up and winning, and we all forget about them. But they're maybe not going to go as far as they would like to this year. But,
No.
But I guess to go to the division that has the most teams making the playoffs, you have the West.
Yeah.
So you have the Seahawks, the Rams, and the 49ers, who I like to say, for anybody who also like is a Formula One fan, the 49ers are kind of like George Russell. They just kind of seem to be in the mix, and nobody really knows how they're in the mix on this. Obviously, they've won a lot of games, but again, who would have thought that was happening?
Very much so. Yeah. It's a strange one. The West. Yeah, the West. So the Seahawks are on 12-3, the Rams are 11-4, and the 49ers are 10-4. They're all in the playoffs. That's not changing. It's just a case of who's going to win the division. I said the Rams a few weeks ago. Then the Seahawks then beat the Rams on Thursday Night Football in overtime. The Rams should have won that. The Rams, they kind of blew that one. I think the Rams should have won that game. So that then puts the Seahawks top. I can't pick. So this weekend,
you have no idea. So obviously with the two of these teams, their final game are against each other. But the Seahawks and the 49ers play each other in the final week. So that is going to be an interesting matchup. Now, I also think this game this weekend for the Seahawks will be an interesting one with the Panthers coming off of their win.
Yeah.
But
I think if you look at the 2 remaining games for each team, you've got to say the Rams are in the driving seat. The Rams have got Falcons and then the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So you've got to think they're going to win those 2 games. So they're going to finish 13-4, which means the Seahawks need to win one of their last 2 games because they've got the head-to-head over the Rams in whatever shape or form it is. So the Seahawks, like you say, play the Panthers this week, which we'll probably cover a bit more detail later. And then they play the 49ers. So the 49ers win this weekend too. They play the Bears. Then it just
we
all
also
becomes...
have we should mention as well, we're recording this before the 49ers have played their game tonight against the Colts.
The Colts tonight as well. So if the 49ers win tonight, they go level with the Rams. They play the Bears next week. So it's crazy the fact that the 3 of them are still up for winning the division. I'm going to stick with my original prediction. I think the Rams... I mean, it's me saying I don't think the Seahawks are going to win one of the last 2 games, but yeah, it genuinely isn't. It's not even just a case of
such a coin flip.
Sit on the fence. It genuinely is so hard to call. The Seahawks go to the 49ers in the last game, which I think could make a massive difference. I'm going to stick with the Rams just because I think they'll get the 2 wins they need. The Seahawks
and if the Seahawks
really need to get 2 massive wins. That both Seahawks games are away. They're at the Panthers and then they're at the 49ers. The Niners I can't see winning out. So I think that takes them into consideration. They need to win out. So I can see them.
Who's their game next weekend?
Bears.
Sorry, the 49ers.
So they play the
Bears,
Colts tonight and they play the Bears. And then they obviously play the Seahawks. So they would have to win out those 3 games to give me a shout. And then it comes down to head. Then it would then come down to the Rams and their head-to-head, and it just starts to get messy. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the Rams. I said the Rams a couple weeks ago. I'm going to stick with the Rams. I literally just flip a three-sided coin.
It could be either. I mean, I think the Seahawks are maybe likely to win both their games. I think you're right, and the 49ers are just slightly too far out of the running
Yeah,
to do it. But I think it is a total coin flip between the Seahawks and the Rams, and that win for the Seahawks last night might have just tipped it in their favour. But that's a very
yeah.
exciting matchup. With another exciting division, which has now come down to a 2-horse race between the Packers and the Bears. Now, we've heard Gavin say for months and months that week 4 tie against the Cowboys would come back to bite the Packers down the line. And I think he's right.
So, yes, and he is right on the record, but they were lucky to get that tie. Do you know what I mean? They were
Exactly.
lucky not to lose the game. They were 1 second away from losing that game. They got a very lucky deflected pass that stopped the clock and got them enough to tie that game. So, yeah, they tied, and theoretically, with the division that has come back to bite them. I think it's pretty, but I think it's done already. I think the Bears have won it. Bears looked very good against the Packers the other night.
Yeah.
I know it was only a 6-point win, 22-16, but just watch it. Caleb Williams he looked excellent watching him the other night.
Yeah.
He just generally looked like a very good quarterback. And this Bears team have got the momentum going in their favour. They have to lose out.
They
The
need to
Packers probably need
lose.
Pickles as well
Yeah.
to try and to win it. I can't see. Also, the Bears will get the 49ers this week, which we mentioned, and then they finish
The
the
Lions.
The Vikings. Who have the Packers got this week?
The Ravens.
The Ravens.
Which, again, so the time of recording, we've not heard anything about Lamar. He's going for an MRI on his back, so we don't know. So if Lamar Jackson's out, that is a very winnable game for the Packers. I think it's a winnable game
I would
anyway.
also say even if Lamar Jackson's not out, it's still a winnable game because the Ravens have been so hit and miss this year.
Yeah.
I'm still going to stick with the Bears. I said I don't think the 49ers will win out. I think the Bears will beat them, and that'll be enough for them to secure the division. I think the Bears.
They just need one.
The Bears have been excellent to watch this year.
Yeah, it's been really exciting for them, and obviously we just spoke a bit about Liam Cohen, but I do think he's now into the chat for Coach of the Year, and I think one of his big rivals is obviously Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
I think it's a big matchup.
I think it's been good to watch. I think the Bears and what's Bears. I think the Bears are probably a year ahead of where they thought they would be as well. And I think this happened with the Lions as well when they had that resurgence and they done really well in that year. I think it was a year too early for them. Is that going to be the same with the Bears? I don't know. The Bears just seem to keep getting knocked and they keep coming back and winning these big games. Is that going to be enough to take them all the way? Who knows? But home field advantage is a massive factor for them if they can get that number 1 seed. That's all going to come down to what happens with the West. If they can get that number 1 seed and teams having to go to Chicago in January, it's not exactly the warmest of place to go in January.
It's not, especially for these teams on the West Coast that are like, goodness me.
I mean, and that Bears win, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but one of the field goals that Cairo Santos kicked for the Bears. So you've seen the wind when you see the flags and the goalposts moving. The goalposts were actually moving with the wind, and he put it through. So yeah, it was a massive win for them. And it always says that grinding out the wins to go and win 2-16 against the Packers, grinding out that big win in the division. I think the Bears will beat the 49ers this week and they take the division.
Okay, good. Yeah, sure. I guess they're. It totally comes down to if they can beat the 49ers, which is not an easy task by any shape or means.
Not, but I think they've got enough to do
momentum. They're a momentum team. Well, we'll talk about that later, but they're a momentum team that are continuing on. We'll come back to that point slightly later on. But finally, NFC, you mentioned about winning in a big division. The Bucks or the Panthers, and a bit of a case of who really wants it more. I think I have my answer, and I think you might have your answer too.
I'll let you go first. I went first for the first two, so
okay.
Who's winning the South?
I think the Panthers are going to win the South. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Baker Mayfield has necessarily had like a recession year. Like, I don't think he's gotten necessarily worse. I just think the confidence isn't there for Baker right now. And I think everybody on this podcast has been exceptionally impressed by the Panthers. And in particular, Bryce Young has really, really come into his own. And it's been amazing to see that develop. Now, in saying all of this, the Panthers obviously do have the Seahawks this week and then have the Buccaneers again. So I don't know if they're going. I don't know how they're going to shape up against the Seahawks. I think it's going to be a real big test for them, and particularly against that defense.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see it all the same.
I think it's going to come down to the last game.
Last
Because
game.
so
Yeah.
I think the Bucks beat the Dolphins, and
Yeah.
I'm going to probably contradict myself here by saying that the Panthers lose to the Seahawks, because then that means the Seahawks win the West. So I'm really kind of conflicted here. I don't think the Seahawks will win. Yeah, I mean, so
But
yeah,
again, stranger things have happened. Like I could
you
see the
have.
Panthers beating the Seahawks. It's
Yeah,
not
that is the thing. You really can. I did say that about the Seahawks. It's hard to say it, but even then, I think it would still come down
to the last game
to the last game, because if they
because
both
if the
win this week, there's
Panthers
only one game between them.
and if the
So if they both,
Panthers
let's just say they
win,
both win, the Panthers will be 9-7, and the Bucks will be 8-8, and then they play each other in the last game. And if the Bucks win that, it'll then come down to conference and divisions and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
do they? Oh no, because they would because then the Bucks would have bet the Panthers and they would have it'd be 1-1 against each other in the division. So then it would go down to
Common opponents,
common
which then
opponents.
becomes confusing because the Panthers will have the conference record
Yeah,
because the Bucks can't catch them on that. But that's, I'm sure, is the fourth tiebreaker. So
yeah,
it's head to
because
head,
it goes head to
division,
head, then division, and
and
then
then common opponents, and then conference.
yeah,
So yeah, starts getting confusing at that point. That's when you start kind of pulling out Rolodexes to try and
ah,
work out who's played who in week 1 and week 2 and stuff like that. Yeah, it's going to come down to that last game, I think, because if the Bucks lose and the Panthers win, it's done.
done.
But I don't see the Bucks losing to the Dolphins this week. I just can't see it
No,
happening. The Dolphins, who started Quinn Ewers this week, and have, by the looks of it, moved on from Tua permanently.
Tua.
That's something that's kind of developed over the last couple of days. They got humped off the Bengals this week as well, which didn't help the case either. So, yeah, I want to say the Panthers. I do want to say the Panthers. The Bucks had it in their hands, and the Panthers have just kept going and kept going. Getting a bit like the Jags. Nobody's really talked about them in terms of how well they're playing. But if the Panthers win it, Sarah, we need to turn around and say, Gav, you were correct. Do we really want to have to do it?
I don't want to do it, but it's okay. I will allow it on this occasion and
You-
this occasion only. No other time. That's fine. Well, okay. Well, so that's the NFC covered. And now I wrote in my notes that I actually thought the AFC was slightly more complicated, but they're probably actually just as complicated as each other. With the AFC being complicated because there's no division locked in, and they have quite a small, tiny little space of playoff spots that are already being confirmed. So I think the North is probably locked in with how they are, with the Steelers leading the way at 9-6. And with
Yeah.
Jackson out of the game last night, again, we don't know what's happening because we don't know his MRI results. But what do you think of the North?
So Mal Jackson has said that or I don't know if it was Mal Jackson or Jim Harbaugh said, we're not ruling him out next week,
Yes,
which
they
means maybe not as bad as we expected, but it kept him out of 2.5 quarters of the game. I can't remember, he got injured just before half
it was
time.
like 17 minutes or something.
So that did keep him out a good bit of the game. So it was obviously bad enough that he couldn't continue last night. Yeah, the Ravens have been so inconsistent.
But yeah,
That's their problem. Even when Lamar's been back, I backed to make him back and win the division, but even I didn't see him being this inconsistent when he came back. They've got the Packers this week. The Steelers have
yep.
got the Browns. Steelers win and it's theirs. That's the thing. If the Steelers win that, they've got a 2-game lead. The Ravens aren't
Well,
catching them.
say like I was convinced that the Browns
They weren't far away. We were not far away at all. Finished 23-20. So the Bills didn't score in the fourth quarter either. Shadur Sanders
So
looked
he
good.
looks good. He's a lot better than his record has suggested. Yep.
He looks like a good. I'm going to say a good quarterback. He's maybe going too far at the moment. There's not enough of a sample
Fine.
size, but he looks like if the season ended now and the Browns had to say who's your quarterback next season, it's Shadur. There's not even a debate. They're starting Shadur if week 1 was next week. That makes sense.
Yep.
He is their quarterback going forward, I think. What else happens? Well, a piece of roundabout him still to be determined. Fortunately, Quinton Junkins broke his leg last night. We don't know if there's any other further damage. If it's just a straight leg break, then that's not a nice way to say this, but a good thing. Because if it's just a straight break, that's a quick recovery. If there's any ligament or muscle damage, then that becomes an issue, because he started to look like a very good running back for them as well. So could the Browns throw a spanner in the works next week against the Steelers? Yes, they could, but I don't think they do. I think the Steelers win that game and win the division.
Yeah, I would be incredibly shocked if the Packers were to drop against the Ravens this week anyway. So, and that just puts the Steelers out as an unreachable point for the Ravens
Yeah.
at that point.
So what actually
Yeah.
makes this interesting, sorry to interrupt, Sarah, is
No, you're fine.
Packers and Ravens are Saturday night late,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
1 a.m. So the Steelers will go into that game knowing what they need to do as well. So Steelers
Yeah.
might not even need to win that game. Obviously they'll still
Nope.
want to win. It's a divisional game against the Browns, but the pressure might be off by the time they even come to play. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out on Saturday night.
Saturday night. I know because there's loads of football this week because
Saturday
we've got
football.
early football as well. Even though those Christmas Day games have not turned out the way we thought they would have turned out.
No, I don't
Nope.
think they have.
They have. No. Okay, let's go to the East, who have the Patriots and the Bills dueling it out. So the
Yeah.
Bills and the Bills shockingly still have quite a good shot at winning the divisions. But with the Patriots seeming to bounce back from their loss to the Bills in week 15, is the division maybe out of reach for Josh Allen?
I think because there's only one game in it, there's still.
Never say never.
I think this week. So this week the Patriots have got the Jets, the
Mhm.
Bills have got the Eagles. So that sounds really daft. If they can both win, then it becomes very interesting. Week 18, the Bills beating the Eagles is going to be a tough ask for them. And who have they got? Let me just put up week 18 at the moment. Patriots have got the Dolphins.
And
Bills have got the
the Bills
Jets.
play
So
the
you both
Jets.
expect them both to win.
They're
Can you drop you see the Patriots losing to the Jets or the Dolphins? No.
probably not.
Can't see it. Yeah, big win for them last night against the Ravens. Again, I know we said the Ravens were being inconsistent, but they still got to win that game in Baltimore.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't see the Patriots dropping any of those two games. So yeah, I'm going to say the Patriots will hold on to that.
Yeah. I also think the division's out of reach for the Bills, like, which is just interesting. So it means that Josh Allen really has to be Mr. January.
Something we've
Really.
not seen very often from them.
Nope. You don't. God love him. And obviously loads of people keep saying that this is Josh Allen's big chance because there is
Yeah.
no Joe Burrow and there is no Lamar Jackson and there is no Patrick Mahomes. And if it wasn't going to be now, it maybe was going to be never for him.
What? I mean, you might not have any of them, Sarah, but he's got Trevor
He's got
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. And CJ Stroud by the looks of things. And yeah, that's quite interesting because I think the current situation in the AFC is that the only quarterback that has gone to the Super Bowl is Aaron Rodgers. The rest would be completely unknowns in the Super Bowl, which is absolutely who would. And again, we keep saying this year must be the craziest year because who would have seen that coming? But I guess speaking of Trevor Lawrence and the South, so they currently have the Jaguars on top as we are ahead of the Texans by 1 game win. But the Texans currently have the divisional tie with the Jags' last 2 games being divisional games. I don't think anyone in particular wants to play either of these teams right now come January. But who do you think is going to take the division? And I won't be upset.
I think the Jags do it purely based on remaining fixtures. Texans have got the Chargers to come.
And again, not to dampen down my divisional rival, but I don't think they played well against the Raiders last night.
No, Ashton Jenney had probably the game of his life, which helped the Raiders as well.
But they didn't play. They didn't play well against quite a pretty okay defense and an offense.
But
and
they
they've got
have
one of the best
they have won
defenses.
7 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. They were 3-5. They're now 10-5.
Yep.
The momentum is completely in their favour. I just don't see it. They've got the Chargers, and then they finish up with
the Colts.
They need to win both of them because I think the Jaguars beat the Colts and then they beat the Titans. So I think the Jaguars do take it. Just based on the way you play at the moment, I think the Colts have fallen off a cliff, as we know. They went from being the number 1 seed to now they're basically out of the cliff. Still in the picture somehow, but they're not in the picture. They did an absolute miracle. But they got a 11% chance if they win tonight. If they lose, 2% chance. The Colts are done. I think the Jaguars take it. I just think based on the 2 games that are left, based on the way the Jags are playing, I think the Jags will take the division.
Okay, I will not say anything because I'm continuing to do my underestimation seems to be working out in my favour for them because then I'm not disappointed. And that's great. So finally, the AFC West. So with the loss last night, what we thought was maybe a locked-in division for the Broncos may no longer be the case. Do we think the Chargers are capable for a comeback for the division?
See, this is...
Just this... We should just soundbite all the size
But
from
the thing is,
this.
week 18 is the Chargers versus the Broncos. So I tipped the Chargers to potentially beat the Texans this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos have lost. The Broncos are playing the Chiefs. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a Broncos win.
Which Frank will then put them out of reach.
Did the Broncos win the first matchup this season?
E-
No, the Chargers
no,
won.
no, they won.
The Chargers won that.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
I should know.
Because
The Chargers,
they have the divisional tie. They'll
Chargers are
have the
5-0
divisional
in the
break.
division.
Yep.
So Chargers win that, they go 6-0. Broncos win this week, Chargers win this week. They play each other basically for the division in week 18. Where is the game?
And so no, is it in Denver again?
Well, I've got week 17's fixtures up twice. It's in Mile High.
It's in Mile High. But
Jaguars went there and won last night.
Yep, it's possible.
Right, I'm going to go with it because he is my favourite non-Cowboys quarterback in the league.
You do love him.
I do love Justin Herbert. I'm going to put the Chargers to go and sneak in and win that division. I'm going to say it. Yeah, Chargers are going to go and take it.
I mean, and I can see that happening because I saw a different side of Bo Nix that we've not seen in a year with what happened last night. Like, he was extremely frustrated. Look, there's a screenshot, a picture of obviously both the QBs, like, will, congratulate whoever it is. They will shake hands at the end of it. And Bo Nix's face after it was not happy. And he was on the sidelines getting shouted at by Sean Payton. So is that where a spiral maybe happens? Who knows? Depends how the bounce back is. So I could see the Chargers coming in week 18 and do it and getting the job done. And that would be an incredible comeback.
It would, right. So I'm going to put you on the spot. We've just discussed who's going to win the divisions, right? Based on that, and remembering what we said when we contradicted ourselves and whatever else, who's taking the number one seeds for the AFC and the NFC for you?
Okay, so I'm going to say the Patriots because of what we just discussed with the Broncos. So I'm going to say the Patriots are going to take the AFC. The only other person that could catch them is the Jags, but then I think it's out of reach by math. And I don't think the Patriots are going to lose the next two games. But I think in the NFC, I'm going to stick to my guns and say I think the Seahawks are going to take it.
I agree on the Patriots. Patriots are going to win out. That puts them on 14 wins. Both just said we think the Broncos will drop the division, which means the Chargers then win it, but the Chargers can't get to the 14 wins, which means the Chargers would finish below the Patriots. So I think the Patriots, I agree, number one seed for the Patriots. On the NFC side, even though I did contradict myself between saying the Seahawks, the Rams will win the division, Seahawks will beat the Panthers, blah, blah, blah. Going back to, I'll stick to, stop confusing myself, I think the Rams win the West, but I think the Bears take the number one seed. There may be some sort of mathematical thing where that can't actually happen because the Rams and the Bears will finish on level records if that's the case.
Yeah.
So, barring, I don't know what the head-to-head is or the tiebreaker between the two of them will be. But I'm going to say the Bears.
But in a perfect world, Dan is saying.
Yes, I'm going to say the Bears take the number one seed unless there's some sort of tiebreaker where the Rams take it ahead of them, is what I'm going to say. So, yeah. And in a short, me, Patriots and Bears for you, Patriots and Seahawks. That makes it easy.
That makes it easy. Okay, we'll come back to us in week 18 to see if that's living up to a possibility, and then come back and see us in week 19, where we'll actually see what that looks like.
Yeah, playoff week.
Playoff week. Well, as we've just discussed, the divisions are locking in. Now, another big question that comes up, kind of maybe even pre this time, so this is quite late, I think, in the season, but do teams start thinking about resting their starters already? And I think Dan, we were chatting earlier, I think Dan summarised it really, really well for what really the two outcomes for most teams looking to this will be thinking right now. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think
the breakdown.
This has, so you said, I think the reason why this discussion probably hasn't happened as much yet is because what we've just discussed, it's so tight. You are going to have teams, but we've already seen teams are already in the playoffs, but they're still in the fight for their division. So come week 18, I reckon most, as we've just said, most of the divisions are still going to be up for grabs in week 18. There's probably a couple of teams where, like, let's say the Eagles, for example. The Eagles, they've got nothing to play for now. So in week 18, do they rest their starters? So let's just talk in a hypothetical world where teams are in positions to rest their starters. We're not going to talk necessarily about certain teams. For me, I think there's two ways to look at it. If you're a team who is playing with momentum, right? If you had secured the division, let's just say, for example, the Jags. Let's say the Jags lock up the division in week 17, right? Nothing can change in week 18. The question is then, do they rest players in week 18? Because they're going to have to play all week in the playoffs. And for me, for the Jags, the answer would be no. because you're a momentum team. You want to keep those players playing. You want to keep them, even if you just play them for the first half, you just want to keep them on the field, keep that momentum going, just to
Yeah,
keep
the
them.
chemistry is still rolling on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When a team like the Eagles, who already have nothing to play for, the Eagles aren't really a momentum team for me. The Eagles,
Mm-mm.
they've been a bit inconsistent with games, but the Eagles will go out and they could lose 2 in a row and get the next week and win. That's the way the Eagles are. So a team like the Eagles, for me, I think could rest their starters because I don't think it'll have a massive impact on them as a momentum as a team going into the playoffs. So it depends on what teams are kind of sitting there at week 18. But for me, that's the way they should look at it. Is if you're playing on momentum, do not rest players. We've seen it happen before with teams where on this great run, get to week 18, they've won the division, let's just rest the starters. And then they get to the playoffs, they're a bit
And they
cold,
get,
they've lost that
yep,
connection a wee bit, and then they don't play. So for me, that simplifies it. And I know that probably doesn't answer a lot of questions for a lot of teams. But for me, that simplifies it. If you're a team that is playing with the Texans, for example, if you're going in
cannot.
and you've won
Yep,
8 games in a row, you can't rest your starters. You just need to keep
no,
that going and keep that momentum going. If you're someone like the Broncos who have just lost and they win next week, let's just say they win next week and they secure the division because of other fixtures, then the Broncos are probably a team that probably, I think, could rest the players in week 18. But then we'll come down to this, like, the number one seed's still going to be up for grabs in week 18 as well.
yeah.
So this is a crazy. I can't remember a season. It's maybe just I've got poor memory. Getting into the week 8, getting into week 17, 7 of the 8 divisions start for grabs, and there's so many teams that can still take the number one pick, the number one seed
Yeah.
on both sides as well. Normally, you've
Yep.
got to point where this season there's 1 or 2 teams that are up for that number one. Most of the divisions are already wrapped up. This season's been so tight and so close throughout the whole
Wild.
season. And the thing is, what's happened with obviously some teams have only got 3 losses, but everybody else has been beating each other.
Yeah.
The Jaguars beat the
So when it,
Broncos last night. They're all just beating each other. The Bears beating the Packers and vice versa. It's just they're all
well,
beating
and
each
the
other.
Seahawks beat the Rams and what? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I think the only answer to the question of who is a team that could realistically rest their starters are the Eagles.
in the
That's it.
moment, yes. As we
They
sit
are
at the
my
moment,
only answer.
yeah.
Because there's nothing they've locked in the division. There is nothing else they are able to do right now. They have done the most they're able to do. They're not going to drop down to the 4th spot because the Bucks and the Panthers can't reach that ahead of them. So they're locked in. They can't move anywhere.
Yeah, I
So
don't even
that
think
makes
they can get
sense.
the number one seed.
Nope, they can't. I'm pretty sure it's out of reach.
There might be some sort of miracle where if they win out, they need the Seahawks and the Rams to lose
They
out.
need everybody to lose,
But
and they
then the
can't all lose
49ers
because
could then jump them if they fought on it. Yeah. I think there's probably some world where the Eagles can still get the number one seed, but it's
probably
probably
on ties.
it'll be way out
If
in
the
the middle of nowhere
yeah
that they can still get it. So yeah, the Eagles and anyway, by the end of next week we'll know. Somebody will win a game next week. They'll take the Eagles out of the contention to win the number one seed anyway. So getting week 18, like you said, I think the Eagles at the moment are probably going forward. The
might
only
be
other
it
team that potentially, depending on results this week, is the Steelers as well.
again.
I
A
think if
bit,
the
but very
Steelers lock up
similar
the
to the
division this weekend, they're another team who aren't really playing on momentum as such. And I think the Steelers could rest their starters for week 18, and Aaron Rodgers would probably be happy if that week off. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think again the Steelers are another team that could probably sit their starters in week 18 if it came to it as well. But
if
everybody
they've locked
else,
it.
I think you're going to want to have them out there, whether you've got something to play for in terms of the division, the number one seed, or just purely to keep the momentum going. Yeah, I think that's the only 2 teams that I can really see could probably rest their starters.
I
The
get
Bills, maybe. If
maybe
if the Patriots sort the division this week, Bills are probably another one where, but Josh Allen will not want to take a week off anyway, so it'll not make a difference. Yeah.
so. It
So
looks like it's just the
in
Eagles.
terms of the
Everybody.
top of the divisions, that's I would say Eagles, Steelers, if they've got the division locked up, are the 2 that I could say. Yeah, if you're resting players, I don't think it's an issue. The rest of them, even if you've got everything sewed up, nothing to play for, you keep them in because you've got the momentum. You need the momentum. You need, or someone like the Broncos, you've took that loss last night. You want to get a couple of wins in the bag going into the playoffs. Yeah, so I'll say the Eagles and the Steelers are only 2 teams that I think. But the rest players, you'd be like, okay, yeah, fair enough, I understand that.
Makes sense.
Everybody
I
else,
understand
I
why you've
think
done
you're
that.
making a mistake.
And I guess on the flip side of that, we are starting to see even some teams who are completely out of the playoff calendar. They're not going to make it, right? Who are also resting their starters and they're saying, it's for injuries, it's for this, it's for that. And one of those teams in particular is the Chiefs, because with the only real player saying that they will play till the end, being Travis Kelce, which
And I
again,
wonder why.
maybe all points to the signs that we all think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you, Dan, which is not related to what we're talking about, but with the injury to Gardner Minshew also being an ACL, what do the Chiefs do? Because if we're talking 9 months for both Mahomes and Minshew, we are not getting your QB1 or your QB2 back in time for the season starting. So what do the Chiefs do? What do the Chiefs do when it comes to the draft, when it comes to free agency, and especially when you look at their cap space? What are we doing in Kansas City? It's really, really I cannot believe how quickly it's all spiraled down for
it's
them.
completely imploded. It's like all the luck that the Chiefs have had over the last few years has just disappeared in an instant. Losing Mahomes to an ACL
was bad.
Season ending, done. Gardner Minshew's not a replacement in any sense of the matter, but to lose him with an ACL the following week, it's just unbelievable for them. It's like if Andy Reid and Travis Kelce could pick the worst way for their careers to finish at the Chiefs, which I think they will, you couldn't even have thought this up. I think the Chiefs, I don't know if, I think we discussed this on the group chat, I think this version of the Kansas City Chiefs are done. I think they need to rebuild and restart. I think we've said, I think Kelsey's going, that's why he's playing the last couple of games, he's not one to miss. I think Andy Reid goes, Mahomes is missing the start of next season.
We think Chris Jones might go as well.
If Chris Jones doesn't retire, he will go because of the cap. He's an absolute hit in the cap space. I think he's guaranteed 35 million next year or something like that.
Something like that. It's the same. It's quite high. It's the same as if because Kelsey technically is under contract for another year if he wants to take it.
Yeah,
and it's a very similar money.
Yeah, they're what 44 million over the cap as we sit at the moment, and 26 players hitting free agency, something like that. Yeah, this is the time to stop and rebuild, and that needs to start with who's going to be QB1 for the Kansas City Chiefs week 1 next year. What's going to be interesting, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks around the league that are available for them. We mentioned earlier on that the Dolphins are moving on from Tua. There's probably a couple of quarterbacks, or maybe we don't know what's going to happen with Joe Flacco. We don't know what's going to happen. Is Philip Rivers going to hang around next season? Do you know what I mean?
Is Tom Brady going to come back?
What's happening with Daniel Jones?
Yep.
The Colts have already said that Anthony Richardson's still the future quarterback.
Well, yeah.
So what happens with him?
What's going to happen with even like looking at the Cardinals?
Yeah.
What the heck's going to happen there?
Yep. You've also got Justin Fields at the Jets. That's not worked out. Is he staying there? Mac Jones happy to continue to be a backup for Purdy because of the 49ers have clearly made it clear that Purdy is a quarterback, even though Mac Jones was playing well. So there is going to be a lot of options out there. Mac Jones is one I think the Chiefs would be interested in. But for me, this is someone, and I've been slagged off for mentioning this guy's name in terms of there's teams out there that are quarterback. So the NFL draft next year is not big. And it is probably one of the poorest quarterback classes in a while. Teams at the bottom of the draft who need quarterbacks will take the two best. There's two best quarterbacks. Mendoza, who won the Heisman, will probably end up in Vegas or potentially Arizona, depends on what happens there. The Giants aren't taking a quarterback.
No, because they believe in Jackson Dart.
So for me, the person who I think, if you're a quarterback in the team, whether that's the Chiefs or whether that's someone else in the league, you want a quarterback for you, to me it's Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
He has come in, the Commanders are 4-11, right? And that's is not a great record to have. But Marcus Mariota's came in, and I don't think Marcus Mariota's ever been a bad quarterback. He didn't get treated very well. Was it the Falcons, wasn't it? When that's what they were on Hard Knocks, and he wasn't treated great by the Falcons in the way that all played out. I think Marcus Mariota is a bit underrated. I'm not saying he's your Patrick Mahomes replacement.
He's not Patrick Mahomes, but he'll get the big thing the Chiefs will need to do is they need a quarterback to come in and win probably at least two out of the 4 games of September. Yeah. Because then that allows Mahomes to come back into the system and should be ready to go in October. Yeah. Providing that.
Well, the question is, obviously we've said he's done his ACL and his LCL, right? So there's 2 ligaments that have gone. If the Chiefs are really in rebuild mode, which they should be, do they even rush Mahomes back? Do you just let's just say it as Mariota, let's say Marcus Mariota goes into Kansas City next year. They're not going to win the division, right? They're not going to challenge the Chargers, they're not going to challenge the Broncos for that division. The Raiders, we'll just discount the Raiders, right? So you're probably you're not even looking at a playoff place next year. So you just leave Marcus Mariota in for as long as he needs to be in, and then maybe get Mahomes back mid-season, last part of the season, and just ease him back into games and give him some game time at the end of the season, and you pick up some draft capital. It's not really. It's a soft tank, we'll say, because they're not going to go out to obviously lose of a losing season. But if you're losing 26 players in free agency, you're losing Travis Kelce. I think you lose your head coach.
Well, you're
You're
going to
in
need to,
rebuild mode.
yeah, you need to
So
pick up something from somewhere, and you're not going to do it. You're not doing that this year because
no,
you've fought, and you don't have the money nor the space to be able to do it.
yeah,
So you're going to have to just pick up people and start developing them.
yeah, and you may as well start your third string quarterback for the last 2 games of the season. But there's no point
Yep,
bringing anybody in. Do you know what I mean? You can't blame them. Do you know what I mean for what
I know.
they absolutely horsed by the Titans, which sounds embarrassing. The Titans have been okay this year. The Titans have not got a great record, but you can
Again,
see
better than the record, I
you can
think.
see the pieces that they're trying to do. You can see what Cam Ward is trying to do there.
Hmm.
So Chris Oladokun will start for the Chiefs for the last 2 games. See what he can do. I mean, he may come in these next 2 games and actually do well, and they
Do
might
quite
be
well.
like, you know what? We can be
Good for
QB
you.
one next year to start the
Yep.
season. There's a lot of change going on in Kansas City, and whoever, if someone comes in as a new head coach comes in, they'll have who they want to be quarterback. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
They'll
No.
see somebody. Let's just say it's somebody like a Cliff Kingsbury. Let's just pick his name randomly. He comes out of Washington to go to the Chiefs as their head coach. He works for Marcus Mariota. And they're like, well,
Yep.
he's done a decent job. I'll take him in. He'll keep me going until Patrick Mahomes comes back. But then, do the Chiefs hire internally? Do they go with Spags and give him the head coaching job? And then they then need an offensive coordinator because Spags is a defensive guru. So they then need
Yes.
an offensive coordinator. So that offensive coordinator might want, well, I want him as my quarterback. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of moving pieces. But for me, if you're a team, whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the Cardinals, whether it's the Raiders, if you need a quarterback next season that's going to be steady, going to get you wins, then I think Marcus Mariota is a good shout because the Commanders are obviously, Jaden Daniels is obviously their franchise quarterback. That's not going to change next year. So, Marcus Mariota,
So
he's my shout for. He'll start for someone in week 1 next year. Who it is, I don't know, but I'll put that out there now.
excellent. Okay. Well, thank you for answering my question that I totally threw at you. It was just an
Yeah.
interesting thought I had this morning when I was just thinking about everything that happened. So
Yes.
there we go. And I guess finally, I had the opportunity to talk about my Jaguars. And
Yeah.
Dan, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about the Cowboys.
Yes.
So week 16 was rough. A 34-17 loss at home to the Chargers not only put pressure on Dallas's tattered playoff hopes, it ended them. So now we're asking, what's next? Because the franchise has the talent and
Yeah.
has the history, but where do you go from here?
It's a few big questions about. So obviously, the start of the season, the trade with Micah Parsons was questioned at the time. Has that had an impact? Of course, it's an impact because you're losing Micah Parsons. Right? That's not up for debate. The starting position needs to be sack Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator. I mean, he needs to go. The defense. The thing is, the defense has shown it can play well, just not consistent. And I think it was a telling thing when it was this week went up into the booth. He came off the sideline and he said, for the rest of the season, I'm going to go up to the booth to see the field from a different angle. They could put him in the parking lot, it wouldn't make a difference. He needs to go, right? I was very sceptical at the start of the season. If we go back, I think I said it on here about Shorty, and I didn't
Yep.
think he was right at the time, but I said I'd give him time. I'm on the Shorty bus. I think he's been great in terms of the players love him. The players have bought into him. If you
Yep.
watch, obviously the teams at the end of every game, well, especially when they win, they put the video up in the dressing room of him giving out the game balls. You can see the players love him. It's not in terms of the level of it, but it reminds me a bit of Dan Campbell with the Lions, where the players
Yes.
love him and they would run
Love
through a
him.
brick wall from him. You can see that with the Cowboys and Shorty. He was obviously there before, so he had that relationship with the players, but you can see he's leading that team. We obviously had the stuff in the season with Marshawn, with Nealand, and the way he guided the team through that. That got him a lot of credit as well. So Shorty stays, no question there. George Pickens needs to be signed now. You've done it with Myers. There was no debate about it. Just sign the contract. Just get George Pickens signed. Don't mess about. Because you mess about, somebody's going to come in and
You'll lose
offer
him.
more money.
Yeah.
He'll be going. Get him signed now. So my dad's got this theory, and he'd done it going back to the 90s, where the Cowboys, I think, went something like 1 in however many games are. So they always sort of won one game, and they went out that year. And he says the Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl next year. Put money on them because he thought, you have a terrible year, you bounce back, you can see what's trying to happen. I'm not going to say the Cowboys are going to bounce back to win the Super Bowl next year. That would be ridiculous. Come week 1 of the season, I'm telling you, the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. But I think we will see a bounce back next year. And I think what we will see is the NFC East is going back to that bit where it's not a strong division again. We've had a couple of years where it was very strong. The Eagles have won it quite easily this year, and they've not played well. If we had put a challenge up against the Eagles this year, I think we would have had a good shot at winning the division. So I think it's rebuild mode this year, year 2 next year. As long as we make the right decisions, signing George Pickens, getting a good defensive coordinator in,
Yeah.
I think we're in a good position. Javonte Williams has surprised me this year, running back. I think I wasn't sure what to expect from him, but happy to go with him as RB1 next year. I'm assuming
I think I know I was gonna say I think Dax had a great year, all things considered. Again, I know
he's
towards the
always going to
end
have a good year, that's the thing.
I know, but I know towards the end of last season people were starting to have a bit of a but he seems to just again be showing up, doing what he needs to do, and it's like you can't win on just your offense
Yeah.
alone.
I mean, the
You
thing is,
can't
people
just win by
say,
scoring
oh,
touchdowns.
Dax, he can't win the big games, he can't take us to the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. He's number
It's the
2 for
defense.
passing yards in the league this year. What else do you want him to do? I mean, what else do you
Stop
want this guy to
be on the
do?
defense.
Yeah,
Be on the defense, be a safety. Like
I suppose the thing is, when you look at the stats, he's still thrown the most amount of touchdowns as well. He's thrown 28 touchdowns.
mhm,
That's probably where, if you look at Matt Stafford, for example, Matt Stafford's through 40. So they're only separated by 4 yards.
yeah,
Stafford's is 4 yards more, but Stafford's through 12
it's the
touchdowns more.
touchdowns.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's maybe whether that's on Dak, whether that's on the receivers, whether that's something we need to get better at, is that red zone conversion into touchdowns. But you've got the second best, highest passer in the league. Dak's not an issue to me. I know a few Cowboys
No.
fans think Dak can't win big games. We need to look at options, blah, blah, blah. If you don't want Dak as your quarterback, who are you really going to replace him
Who
with?
do?
So I think we're fine on the
Yeah.
offensive side of the ball. I just think the defence, there's this whole thing, what's going on with Trayvon Diggs. Nobody knows. We reacted to him off IR on Saturday, which was the deadline. They're on Bland on IR because he's got a foot injury. So then does Diggs play the next couple of games? What's going on with him? Nobody knows. Yeah, well, I think the big issue is the defence. We were so wide open. The joke was at the start of the season about where were the Cowboys DBs, because we were everywhere. We weren't anywhere near the players, the receivers, or the ball. We were everywhere.
They're running into each other.
And that's
They're
all down
doing
to
God knows
the
what it
scheme,
is.
obviously. So if you get
Yeah.
a defensive coordinator in that's going to run a better scheme than that, obviously the offensive side of the ball doesn't worry me. Maybe obviously score a few more touchdowns. But I think I like where we're sitting right now. If we can make the right moves, again, we will draft either an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman in the first round. We have still had some good draft capital, because obviously, even though we traded for Williams, we had the Packers' first round pick as well. Still not
Yeah.
sure which pick went to the Jets. I think it might have been the ours, because it was higher. So we still have a first round pick, a couple of decent picks here. So yeah, so I'm optimistic is what I'll say. I imagine there's a lot of teams out there with a losing record that are not as optimistic as I am getting into the off season. But I'm not happy where we're at, but I'm happy with where we're going.
Good. I think that's a great outlook to have, and people can maybe tune in next week to hear from two people who don't maybe have as an optimistic outlook on their teams as we maybe do, as we have put the request in for both Gavin and Brian to talk about their teams next week.
Yeah.
And with Brian talking about the Cleveland Browns and Gavin talking about the New York Giants and ahead for next year. But that is enough, I think, to talk about week 16. Let's do a very, very, very quick look ahead into who we think, or what games we think, are going to be the pick of the week for week 17. So I'm going to start.
Go for it.
Because again, it's in the AFC. So I'm going to go with the Texans at the Chargers as one of my games to watch. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game, in particular for the AFC South Division, in particular for the Chargers and moving forward for them. So that is going to be an excellent game and a really, really good matchup, I think, with lots of playoff problems in that looming over their heads.
Yes, there is a lot of games this week that are they're not. So obviously, week to week, there's always a game we look at. Oh, they're really good games. Really good games this week all have implications as well. It's not like well, apart from maybe one, which we'll maybe cover at the end, but all the games we're going to talk about are really good games, but they also have playoff implications or division implications as well. So my first pick is going to be the Bears and the 49ers.
I'm waiting for you to say your other one.
I knew you were. The Bears and the 49ers for me.
Yep.
We've spoken about it already, the implications that these two teams have got going over the next couple of weeks. But again, that's going to be a great game to watch. And obviously, whoever wins it, it's going to swing so many different things and across not just their own divisions, but potentially across the whole NFC. So yeah, that's my first week 17 pick. I think it's an excellent pick.
Great. Okay. Well, my second one, I'm going to leave you the one that I'm going to leave you. My second pick is going to be the Jaguars at the Colts. Can the Jaguars not completely knock the Colts out of playoff implications if they don't have a terrible game against the 49ers tonight? And it's really just important for the Jaguars to continue to build on momentum, as we were talking about earlier. So I'm excited for that. And I'm curious to know if our defensive line is maybe going to kill an old man. That's going to be interesting in itself. And there you go, Dan.
Right.
I will leave you
Hey, this last
with
one, it's confused me. It's contradicted me. It's conflicted me this whole episode. And it's the Seahawks and the Panthers. I'm not even going to say I can't even say where I think it's going to go because I've flipped and flopped between the Seahawks and the Rams and the Panthers and the Bucks this whole episode. So that tells you how much of a big game this actually is. That there's so much
yeah, I think
on the
that's
line
the key tender here.
with this game. And it affects, like, listen, it affects the two of them. It affects the Rams, the 49ers, and the Bucks. There's probably the one game that impacts on most teams round about them is this one. So that's going to be an absolute cracker. I just realised there's only 2 later games on Sunday night for us, and 9 o'clock games.
because you've got the
Christmas
Christmas Day games.
So there's a massive early slate, then there's only 2 late games. So all the games we've spoken about, apart from the Bears, the 49ers, which is Sunday night football, are all early games on Sunday.
Yes.
No, sorry,
Very
Texans Chargers
exciting.
is Saturday night. That's a good Saturday night game.
That's a good Saturday night
That's a
game.
good
Yeah, it's a
Saturday
half
game.
nine.
Right. And one other game, I mentioned it, I'll throw it in. Not really much to play for in terms of the Eagles, as we said, but the Bills and the Eagles, massive game. Depending on what happens, Patriots are early kickoff, so the Bills will know what they need to do going into that game. They need to win anyway, but they'll know it could be
really
losing, the division's gone. The Patriots aren't going to drop to the Jets. It's a game to watch purely because it's 2 really good teams, but there's not as much on the line in that game as
is it a potential Super Bowl preview?
No, it's not.
No, I know, but no, it's not, because the Eagles aren't making it. Is that an interesting? It's, again, like you just said, it's 2 really, really good teams, and it's a shame that unfortunately the Christmas Day games have maybe not worked out the way that we wanted.
Yeah. Well, just one last point in that game. I says we mentioned. I don't know if we mentioned it before we came on earlier on. I've got very confused that Josh Allen's going to have to be a January quarterback this year. He is going to have to. This is the type of game that he's going to come up against in January, as against teams like the Eagles. So he's going to have to put the marker down and show, if the Patriots win that division, I need to be winning these games in January. I need to be able to beat the teams like the Eagles. Obviously, not play the Eagles in January. I need to beat teams like the Eagles that are roundabout us with a similar record when there's a lot on the line. So, can Josh Allen win that game? But again, it's a regular season game, so he will win. Let's see what happens come January, though.
He will, because it's December and he's Mr. December. So, yes. Well, I think that pretty much summarises this episode. Please make sure to go check out our YouTube channel and all the podcast platforms for the previous week's episode and shows, and our In Conversation With series of podcasts. But Dan, I just want to thank you for joining me. This has been a great episode, and I hope the listeners have also loved it, because it's been a really fun one.
They're listening to me flip and flop across that whole episode. But for us, this is the last episode that me and you will be on this side of the year. So I just want to say to everybody who's watched and listened to us over 2025 and the end of 2024, thank you very much for all your support across the last 12 months. We look forward to chatting more football and more in conversations with in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, just to piggy off the back of what Dan's just said, thank you all for listening and watching. Gav and Brian will be back next week. So until then, we wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we will see you soon.